It's time for the Cover Price top 10 list for the week. No ultimate books on the list, heavy on the Copper Age. And there's a reason why. Let's take a look and break it down up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. I'm just going to remind you that coming up on Saturday, if you're in the Northeast, April 6th, King Con 5 in Park Ridge, New Jersey at the Park Ridge Marriott. The link to the website for the show is in the description of this video. It's a great show. Basically powered by people from the comic book community here in the Northeast, specifically a lot of YouTube, Instagram, content creators. So just come on out. It's a great time. I'm really looking forward to it. I will be setting up there selling, and come by and say hello. So we're going to jump into the Cover Price top 10 list, and I don't want to, delay. So let's just jump right into it. Let's just jump into the list at number 10. This is the only recent book on the list. It is a copy of Avengers Twilight, Book 1, the first appearance of James Stark, the son of Tony Stark. And this is a book that is in the, around $15 range, but 9/8 still under $100. There are, again, this is a recent book, so we anticipate an increasing number on the census. 87 Universal, 81 of those are 9/8, and the 9/8 is going for under $100. So, I mean, unless James Stark becomes really popular, and I don't see a narrative avenue for him to be introduced into the MCU, I'd be a little bit wary of this book. We can see the most recent auction for just $66. It is a cool book. You got an Alex Ross cover. It is a #1. You got a nice Scotty Young variant there. But I'm a little concerned about the long-term value of this book. Let's go to number 9. And this is a new book on the list. It's an established key, but we haven't heard about it for a while. Avengers Annual number 10, one of the worst covers of all time. And the first appearance of Rogue, and also the first appearance of Madeline Pryor. We can see this is an expensive book. For a high-grade copy, you're going to have to spend well over $100, and 9.8's up in the $720 range. Let's look at what Cover Price has to say. What a book to see hit the top 10. Has been some time since we saw Rogue on our top 10 list, but she's back thanks to X-Men 97. This is something that we're going to see throughout the list. The show has been a successful launch, and the series has chosen to focus on key members of the team. Rogue, whose first appearance is in this issue, has taken the spotlight as the show explores her relationship with Magneto. The tension is very well done, and the fans applaud the showrunners for exploring not only the X-Men, but the stories behind the super that showcase their humanity. And yeah, the list is really heavy on X-Men 97. And it's a little bit unusual, in my estimation, for an animated project, an animated TV series, feature films, obviously the Spider-Verse films, Paramount among that, and other animated films of independent properties are different. And we saw Mario Brothers even have an effect on the market. But TV shows, it's not part of the MCU. But this is an established key. This is always going to be a key. Let's take a look at the trajectory of the 9.8. And this was, it's what, let's say just under a $400 book before the boom. And then it exploded to $2,100. And it's been on the downtrend ever since, just like most books, most keys. I talk about King Con. When I went to King Con 1 as a buyer, there was a guy that had almost an entire long box of this book. Must have been a warehouse find. Did I pick up a copy? I'm not sure. I know I have a copy. The most recent sale, $999, fixed price on eBay. That's rather healthy. So we can see this book, but it never got down basically even at its lowest, it never got close to the pre-boom levels. So is this a book that is overvalued based on the trend prior? When we go back to 2018, $200 book. I'm not sure. I have questions about how this book is faring compared to where it was 5 years ago, let's say 4 or 5 years ago. So let's move on to number 8. And this one completely shocked me. Supervillain Team Up number 5. This is a book from 1976. It's the first appearance of the Shroud. And raw copies, high grade, $20-$30? This is interesting. A recent, last month, a CGC 9.8 sale of $675. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's look at what Covrprice has to say about this book. There are a few instances where a key book hits our top list with no prior rumors or information on the character, despite not knowing why. The first appearance of the Shroud is making waves in the aftermarket. The Shroud is often referenced as Marvel's Batman. The Shroud's creator, Steve Englehart, even stated that Batman was a primary influence behind the creation of the Shroud. To paraphrase Lloyd Benson, I know Batman, and the Shroud is no Batman. The Shroud, of course, back to many Marvel heroes like Fantastic Four, Captain America, Spider-Man, Spider-Woman. I mean, a C-list character at best. I think he had a short-lived series in the 90s. Let's take a look at the health of this book on over time. Right, this is the 9.8. It's a 9.8 from 1976 of a first appearance of a character that does have a degree of popularity. 150, and then a sale 227, then a sale 950. Boom sale, and then down, but 675 seems to me a little bananas. Maybe somebody, I don't think there are too many 9/8 of this book available. So maybe somebody really, really wanted it because they're a big Shroud fan, but that doesn't explain why the number of copies sold has increased. Let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts on why the Shroud has been so popular as we move to number 7 on the list. And this has been on the list before. Uncanny XMen 200, The Trial of Magneto, an anniversary issue. This is a book that the raw prices seem to be climbing, right? You're going to have to pay probably at least $30 for a high grade raw. And we're talking about probably in the 125 to 150 range for a 9.8. Really not a book that's worth getting slabbed lower than 9.8. Not garnering $100. So this book is on the list because of X-Men 97. The Magneto's wearing this costume, and he is on trial. I haven't watched the new series, so no spoilers. But I don't like this costume. It is weird, like the sleeveless and the long. Where are those gloves coming from? I mean, he looks. I don't know. That's just a very is it his coming out party? Is he wearing those to a cotillion? I don't know. I'm not a fan of this costume, but let's take a look at the book on Go Collect the 9.8s. Again, this book, $50+ book, and then you had one big sale here. Where is it? There, 210, and then right back down, and then the boom happened, and it took a while for this book, and it's been up and down in the 150 to 200 range. It's kind of sitting there just under 150. What do we got? We got any? There's somebody asking 165 for a 9.8. Again, it's a book that's not impossible to get a 9.8 from 1985, but it is a double size, so those thicker books do tend to have a little more stress to the spine. Let's go to number 5. This one caught me by surprise. The one-shot Galacta, Daughter of Galactus. I think I had this in a collection at one point. Near mint 59, 9.8, 135. Somebody bought a near mint copy for $190. Okay, what am I missing? I missed the memo on this one. Last week, in partnership with NetEase Games, Marvel Entertainment released a trailer for their new team-based superhero PPV shooter. The trailer was a massive hit for gamers and fans of Marvel alike. The trailer showcased many playable characters along with gameplay. It also showcased a tease at the big bad of the game in the form of Galactus. Many did not know who this was, and the book started moving at breakneck speeds for those that did. Galactus is the daughter of Galactus, making her first appearance in Marvel Assistant Size Spectacular #2. Interesting, this book styles at higher FMV than her first appearance. And maybe a case of misinformation to non-collectors. Video games will move the market, but I think that's somewhat temporary. I mean, there are very few sales, and even when I look at this book, there are only 21 of it, a 9.8 from a book from 2009. Only 5 of the 21. Who's getting this? Is not a book that people would be getting graded, and you're gonna be hard pressed to find a 9.8, I would imagine, just because only 5 of them exist in the world. So the question is, will we see more submissions of this book? I don't think it was a particularly high print run, but there have to be collectors that have it out there that bought it. And, since it's 15 years old, less than that, 14 and change, it might not be that difficult to find in a 9.8. Let's move to, where are we going? Number 5, and an old friend, Spawn #1. You know it. You have it in your collection. You maybe even have it as a 9.8. The 9.8 has been steadily ticking down. It only reached heights of 258 because there's so many of them. And then ticking down to earlier this year, it was in the 180 range. Keeps coming down. Although somebody bought one for 270. What did they get? 2 of them? That seems cuckoo banana pants. What happened to my 9.8? A 9.9 just sold for $3,720. Remember, there are 69 9.9s and 6 10s out of 25,000 graded. And somebody's asking 159. This is a book you can find rather easily. Oh, maybe that sale went away, but still 195 is pretty healthy. Pretty healthy sale for this book. I don't think there's any news on any movie front. Yeah, it's just a book that people want, and there is kind of a balance in terms of the demand and the supply of this book. Let's go to number 4. Number 4, Uncanny XMen 239, the first cover appearances of both Mr. Sinister and Madeline Pryor as the Goblin Queen. So this is a book. High grades are in the going upwards of $40, and 9.8s are approaching $200. This is all related to X-Men 97, so I'm going to avoid spoilers. Hopefully, you've been able to keep up with X-Men 97. This one contains spoilers, so I'm going to skip it and just take a look at the values of the 9.8. Again, a book that went up to $660 at the height of the boom and has kind of been corrected. It corrected pretty quickly. And it's kind of been holding steady in that 180-ish range. Maybe every once in a while an issue goes for $200. So again, plentiful book. But even though it is a book from 1988, there are only 1,000 on the census, and a quarter of those are 9.8s. When did I submit this? I can't remember. I think I got a reject on that in a 9.8 pre-screen. Well. Let's go to number 3 and X-Men 4, the first appearance of Omega Red. High grade copies, $20-25, just over $100 in a 9.8. We look over time. This book was a poster child of the comic boom as it went from about $140 book, bam, up to $350, and it has been trending steadily downhill ever since. It looks like it's kind of leveled off at $100, but look at this. It's got a fair market value now, a 1-year average of 116. We go back to that's kind of in line with 2019. And just before the boom, it was, a little bit higher than that. People kept speculating that this character was going to appear, and he has not. But I'm going to guess, if I look at the write-up, here we go again. Omega Red has been a fan favorite X-Men villain since his introduction. Fans have been collecting his first appearance since before the debut of X-Men 97. Ever since the show debuted, all X-Men books have spiked in interest and value. He was, in season 2 of the original X-Men animated series. But one thing about this book is, a couple of things, right? Number one, there are 12,000 on the census, 4,800. Only 40%. I think a lot of people got lower 9s graded when this spiked. And there is a sole 9.9. This 9.9 just popped up in, I think it was around November of 2022. And this is a good book to keep an eye on in terms of the question as to whether or not CGC is handing out more 9.9s. I have 20 books that, as of a couple of weeks ago, when I did the video a year ago and a follow-up a couple of weeks ago, had no 9.9s. I'm going to kind of return to that video, the 20 books that had the most 9.8s on the census, return to that video and see if there's a change, if we do start to get some 9.9s and how many, because I think that's a good kind of test case, those 20 books, because they never had 9.9s and they had a lot of books submitted. There were thousands of hundreds and thousands of 9.8s. But just out of curiosity, if we drop this down to a 9.2, which is still a respectable grade, but let's take a look at the trend on that. I mean, it boomed up to 150 and now it's, $50. One sold at auction for 31. Some people want this. You can get it rather easily in a 9.8 or certainly in a high grade raw. Number 2, X-Men 221, the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. We saw this book last week. High grade. Look at the FMV on near mints is 183. You're gonna have to pay up close to $100 for this. It's around $100 in a 9.6, close to $300 in a 9.8. I did get a 9.8 of this book, and that's kind of where it's been. Again, it was in the south of 200, and then boomed up to 600 plus, and its descent has been a little slow. It is above where it was, and I think a lot of that has to do with the speculation on Mr. Sinister, not only here for the animated series, but the idea that we will see him at some point in live action. Mr. Sinister's top movie this week, he made his comeback, yada, yada, yada. I have yet to see that. Let's go to number 1. X-Men number 168, the first appearance of Madeline Pryor and the first mention of Lockheed. Now, this is a book that has spiked in value recently because of that, around $30. Let's just suffice it to say that Madeline Pryor has something to do with X-Men 97. Let's look at the historical values of this book. And in a 9.8, right, it was always around $100 plus, did spike up as high as $432, and now is settling in probably in, I would say, about $180. We do have a couple of sales that are higher at $256 or $310. Look, there's a $245 available you get right now. There's a $269, $325. So they are out there at $250. And somebody's asking, the newsstand. So again, a good book. But notice here, for a book that when X-Men was at its zenith was selling like hotcakes, only 1,100 on the census, and a third of them in a 9.8. So let's take a quick look at the runners up on the list. Okay. X-Men number 24, the Rogue Gambit Embrace, Wolverine number 1. This is interesting. War of the Realms, New Agents of Atlas, number 1. Covrprice is going under the assumption that people are now excited about Marvel properties with the success of X-Men 97. A lot of first appearances here, a lot of rumors. I don't believe, I'm going to double check. I don't believe this was the one that had, if I remember correctly, the most 9.8s with no 9.9s. And I believe that's still the case. If we look at least the, I think this is pretty immediate. Yeah, nope, not no 4,200 9/8, no 99 still. Again, this is something I'm going to keep an eye on, and I do have the 20 book control group, so to speak, that has a history of books being graded with never a 9/9. And I'll kind of add a caveat to that in X-Men 4, which does have the sole 9, the single 9/9. So let's go back to the runners-up list. Number 14, Wolverine Limited Series, number 1. We got Ultimate Black Panther and Ultimate Spider-Man jumping on the list. We have the first appearance of Psylocke in her new appearance, First Bishop, First Jubilee, and an old friend, Amazing Spider-Man 300. So that's it for the list. Kind of a breath of fresh air to get some older books, some books that us veteran collectors have in our collections and have seen and have read, rather than the brand new flavor of the week. But a lot of it related to X-Men 97, and I'm still scratching my head over that first appearance of the Shroud. I think somebody just went bananas and really wanted it in a 9/8 and spent the $675, and maybe that's lifted other books up. I don't know. It's just one of those inexplicable things sometimes that there really isn't any reason to it. It just happens for an older book. Listen, could the Shroud be developed into something, in live action? Maybe. But if you really like the character, yeah. But I wouldn't spend the next mortgage payment betting on the Shroud coming to the MCU. I could be wrong. Don't follow my advice. Do your own research and collect whatever you want. It's your money. It's taking up room in your house. I collect what I want, and some of it's silly. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for stopping by, spending some time with me here. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying, until next time, enjoy your comics.